Friday practice at Abu Dhabi is over, and the fastest driver of the day was Lando Norris and McLaren, as McLaren are currently ahead of Max Verstappen and Red Bull. But what did we learn? Well, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at the data and doing a data analysis from practice. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. But now, let's get into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top teams later on, so please do stick around for that. Yep, Friday practice at Abu Dhabi is over, and it was a bit of a weird day of practice running. As usual, in Abu Dhabi, FP1 was not representative due to taking place during the day, which is not relevant when it comes to the race, as of course the race takes place during sunset and into the evening. And because of that, it meant that we saw 9 rookies out on track during FP1. In fact, Aston Martin had both of their cars be run by rookies because the session is really not that relevant to them. But what was a bit of a surprise was McLaren, as McLaren had Pato O'Ward in Oscar Piastri's car during FP1. And I know I said that it's not really relevant, but Piastri is in a championship fight, and those laps are going to be quite important when it comes to a title decider. But McLaren, they left it too late to swap out Piastri for any other running, so it had to be done in Abu Dhabi. But how did the times compare from FP1 to FP2? Well, let's compare the fastest lap from both sessions so we can see what the differences were. And when you compare these two laps from the sessions, you can see pretty clearly that there is a lot more grip in the circuit for FP2 compared to FP1. When you just look at turn 1, for example, Norris in FP2 has a lot more grip and can throw the car into the corner and know that it will just stick. He also gets a better exit as well. Not only that, but you can see how the power unit is turned up a little bit more for FP2 compared to FP1, as the top speed is a bit higher in FP2, and also Norris reaches that top speed quicker, showing that he is using a little bit more deployment in the second practice session. Norris in FP2 is about 4 or 5 km per hour faster down the straight. Through turn 9, Norris carries more speed as well, and also through those 90-degree corners at the end of the lap, Norris is quite a bit quicker in FP2, as the circuit has cooled down and the grip has increased, allowing Norris to get the car turned into those corners quite a bit easier than he could during the first practice session during the daytime. Overall, between the two laps, there was a difference of 1.4 seconds. Having seen how the times compared from FP1 to FP2, let's now take a look at the top speeds that the teams and drivers are able to reach to see what we can learn, and we can maybe see who's looking fast and who's not looking so fast in a straight line currently. And when you take a look at these top speeds, you can see that, well, Red Bull and Max Verstappen have a quite clear straight line advantage right now, as Red Bull and Verstappen was able to reach a top speed of 330 km per hour. Verstappen does look fast in a straight line, but we also did see that Verstappen was struggling a little bit when it came to understeer, so maybe Red Bull do need to work a little bit on the car and increase the downforce overnight, because maybe they're running with too little downforce, because, well, their top speed is a good few kilometers per hour faster than anyone else, at least right now. The slowest car in a straight line, rather surprisingly, was not a McLaren, but instead it was the Aston Martin, which is actually a bit of a surprise, which tells me that maybe Aston Martin did have things turned down a little bit more. Either that, or they are running with more downforce than anyone else, which, again, I would say is a bit of a surprise. I just want to say, if you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. But now, let's get back to the video, and let's talk about Ferrari. For Ferrari then, honestly, it didn't seem too bad, but it was not a spectacular day. In FP1, Lewis Hamilton made way for Arthur Leclerc, and during that session, Charles Leclerc was right there with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Then in FP2, it was P8, which is quite a bit further away, and it was about half a second. There is a sense, at least in my opinion, that there is more to come from Ferrari and Charles Leclerc, but it wasn't too great in FP2. Teammate Lewis Hamilton was only 14th. But again, he only did FP2, he didn't take part during the first session. The main area where Ferrari seemed to lose out was in Sector 1. But let's now take a look at the long runs to see how Ferrari are looking when it comes to the race pace. And let's compare Charles Leclerc to George Russell because, well, Mercedes are technically, I guess, their main rivals, even though Mercedes are quite a way ahead in the Constructors' Championship. And what can you see when you take a look at these two runs? Well, when you look at these long runs, it's actually a bit of a surprise, and it's pretty good for Ferrari. It is pretty close between Charles Leclerc and George Russell, but it is advantage Ferrari. At least right now, they are slightly faster. That being said, they're still quite a long way away from the McLarens and Max Verstappen, which means they're more likely to be fighting for 4th place right now, rather than a podium. For Red Bull then, it was a pretty good day for them and Max Verstappen. As I mentioned earlier, Red Bull and Verstappen are looking pretty close to McLaren and Norris, and they also look like they could be in the mix at the start of the race. And if Max is in the mix at the beginning of the race, you have to expect that he's going to go all in at the start and try to do whatever he can to give himself an advantage to try and win the World Championship. He was there or thereabouts with Norris over 1 lap. So, let's compare their 2 fastest laps. And when you take a look at these 2 laps, there are some clear areas where Verstappen was at least losing out against Lando. Through turn 1, Norris carries more minimum apex speed, but look at the run to turn 5. Verstappen backs off quite a bit earlier than Lando Norris and loses a lot of time. He does use that to get a better exit, but given the amount of time he loses, I'm not really sure it was worth it. Also, look at the end of the straight as well. Once again, we see Verstappen brake earlier and lose time compared to Norris. Through the 90-degree corners of turns 11, 12, 13 and 14, Verstappen does close back the lap time to Lando, but then going through those final couple of corners, which again are medium speed corners, much like turn 1, we see Lando Norris open the gap back out to Verstappen, showing that in the medium speed corners, that McLaren is working very, very well, and Red Bull do have a little bit of work to do. Also, given how early Verstappen braked for turn 5, I do think there is more time in it for Verstappen and Red Bull, but they do need to dial the car in a little bit more for those minimum apex speed corners, because right now, they are not fast enough against McLaren and Norris. But thankfully for Verstappen, if there is one team that can turn the car around overnight, it is Red Bull. We've seen it time and time again, and I do think we're going to see it one more time. For Mercedes then, it was a good day, and George Russell is pretty close behind the main championship contenders, and if he gets a good run in qualifying, we really could see George get into the mix in the World Championship fight. But how far away was he from Lando Norris? Well, let's compare their 2 laps, so we can see really where Russell needs to improve. And when you take a look at these 2 laps, firstly, Norris was, as we saw, a demon through turn 1, and gained an immediate advantage, which he carries through to pretty much the end of the back straight. Russell then gets a pretty solid run into turn 6 and 7, but he compromises his exits a little bit, probably due to running in so hot. In general, after that, it is pretty close between the two, until it gets to those final couple of medium speed corners, where once again we see how brilliant Norris and McLaren was through those corners. This shows to me that, like I just said, McLaren is in the sweet spot for those medium speed corners, and we can really see them use that to their advantage. At least for Lando Norris. And finally, for McLaren then, it was a great day for Lando Norris, topping both of the practice sessions, which sets him up quite nicely for the rest of the weekend. Provided, of course, he doesn't mess anything up in qualifying, which can happen, but Norris is looking very good right now. Teammate Oscar Piastri had to sit out FP1 due to the rookie driver rule, and honestly I'm a bit surprised McLaren didn't use the second FP1 session for Piastri earlier in the year, because it does set him back a little bit. I appreciate FP1 is not the most representative session, but it is a World Championship decider involving Oscar Piastri. He really needs all the time he can possibly get out there on track, and he was quite a bit behind Lando Norris right now. Even so, let's compare the long runs of Norris, Piastri and Verstappen, so we can see what we learned. And when you look at these long runs, firstly, it's pretty clear that Verstappen has done the homework by going very long on the medium tyres. His medium run was quite a bit longer than that of Norris and Piastri. Both of these two, in general, really had a pretty short run before heading back to the soft tyres. I don't think it's going to affect McLaren too much, but it does help Red Bull to get a better understanding of the tyres as the stint wears on, and we get more degradation. And you can see that there is some degradation. Verstappen starts his stint in the 29s, but he ends the stint in the high 30s. This is going to be very useful for Verstappen and Red Bull. Norris's average was the fastest overall, but his stint was not as long as Max's, and to be fair to Verstappen, he does have a pretty good stint during this run. Piastri was the slowest of the three, and has the most work to do so far, but honestly, that's not a huge surprise. Piastri has a lot of work to do if he wants to be in the hunt for this World Championship, whereas teammate Lando Norris is honestly looking pretty good right now. So with that in mind then, what are my qualifying predictions for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? Well, in P5 I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, P4 will be Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, P3 will be George Russell in the Mercedes, P2 will be Lando Norris, and I'm still going to go for Max Verstappen to take pole position. But Lando Norris is right there and can definitely take pole if there are no issues and he nails that lap. But those are my thoughts. The question is, what do you guys think will happen? In the comment section down below, please do let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.